Oh, I don't know. Oh, I felt like Mina today because I was the star of the internet for like 5 minutes. It was amazing.
You explicitly told me a few days ago that you were looking to get better at the internet.
Uh-huh.
So mission accomplished then.
Yep. The problem is not having a one hit. I can be a one hit wonder. My issue is I can't sustain it. I got to figure out how to force. I need to set a timer and force myself to sustain internet engagement. Ugh.
That was my advice to you. Well, a good place to start is with this program.
Yeah, I guess so. Debatable. It's your favorite analyst's favorite show. And I'm Domonique Foxworth. That's Mina Kimes. And that is Alabaster who's going to come in and ask us questions. Questions that we already know. So I'm not sure we need you.
You certainly don't. I'm hanging on by a thread. But let's get started with.
There's a list of jobs that could be replaced with AI in the industry.
Literally, I'm at the top of that list.
No. Mina, have you heard that the internet is calling?
Okay.
I mean, so he's been on. He's a co-host on my podcast, so his face is on there a lot, and he's got a little hive that thinks he's cute. They call him the Vanilla Snack. I wish I was making it up. Vanilla Snack is his nickname.
The Vanilla Snack. It's like the Vanilla Vic, but interesting. I mean, yeah. I guess snacks can be vanilla, so it makes sense. How many people are we talking about?
All right, guys, let's talk about some. Let's talk about some sports.
Ones of people, ones of them.
All right, guys. So, which match are you more excited to watch on Friday? Messi's debut in Miami or the U.S. Women's National Team versus Vietnam?
I mean, for me, it's definitely the women's national team. Like, I feel like I'm supposed to say Messi because he's like a god amongst men. I do have interest.
No, you're just supposed to say the World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, it's a high stakes match that like really matters, and this is one of those sports that I think is okay. Well, I guess this match doesn't matter so much because it's in the group stage, so they're obviously going to get out of. But it's one of those sports that none of us really pay too much attention to until it's time, and then I get fully invested, and I look forward to it. I'm excited about getting fully invested in this team along with the rest of the country.
I pay attention to U.S. women's soccer as much as possible, and because I do, I know that.
Don't try to play me. You are not watching U.S. women's soccer.
You don't get to rope me into the no one pays that we don't know what's going on.
I do know what's going on. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Anyways, the point I was going to make is while this question, the answer is obviously the World Cup. The World Cup is awesome. I can't wait to watch it. This is a pretty lopsided opener for the U.S., and I think that's the one place where you could argue that this match might not hold people's interest for very long. On one hand, you have the team that is gunning to go back to back to back for the first time in the history of World Cups, men or women. On the other hand, you have a team that is, I believe, making their debut in Vietnam. I'm trying to think of an analogy in other sports. You know, this is the 1 versus the 16 seed here. Let me ask you this:
1 versus 16 is being generous.
Yeah, that's actually too generous, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you this, because I do want to talk about the U.S. women's team and kind of the expectations for the World Cup beyond this game. But I do want to ask you this about this particular game: am I soft for feeling sorry for these teams from countries? And this is across after like 6 goals.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, okay. Like, let's, settle down. I start, especially when like the keeper is just clearly like, what did I do? Why am I here? Why did I fly halfway across the world to watch Sophia Smith and Alex Morgan score 300 goals on me? Like, I just feel bad. I just feel bad.
I know you, and I know you have a good heart, but this is why you can't play me, because you would never say that for the Seahawks. You would never say that for the Mariners. You would never be in the middle of a game.
They would never be facing that much of a disparity in talent. Sorry, Charlie.
Domonique, how did you feel when you lost by like 150 points to Florida? Did you feel bad for yourself?
I did not. And that's the point I was going to make. I think it's okay for the fans to feel a little bad, but the players, no. You keep piling on. It's nothing more fun than whooping somebody's.
The starters will be out by 20 minutes in or something like that. Actually, that's where this gets important, because as much as the U.S. are the favorites, as much as we will see many familiar faces. This is Pino's last World Cup. I think the 9 starters from France are going to be in the mix. There's a lot of people who have never played in this level before for the U.S. So it's, I think, an opportunity for them in this opener to get experience early on and to kind of get their sea legs underneath them.
Their best forward. So you talk about Rapinoe, who's 38. And Elisa Thompson is 18. And I think Sophia Smith, their other best forward, is 22. And Trinity Rodman is a young player also. This is certainly like the changing of the guard, I guess. There's still some veteran players there. I'm thinking, I guess this is my football bias, but Julie Ertz is my favorite player just because she was smart enough to marry a football player. But
I thought you were going to, because she plays kind of like a football player.
She's physical as hell.
She's like, oh my God. Yeah.
But
she's definitely the bruiser.
I'm excited for the whole country to get excited about this one thing. So it'll be nice. I think I've always, when I start to read up on these things and get like up to date, I remember like the Olympics and the World Cup. And even though they didn't win the Olympics, coming in, I feel like there's really no chance. I kind of feel like USA basketball, but reading about this year's World Cup, like I know England has a bunch of injuries, but like Spain and Sweden and Germany, like I don't feel like with this young team that is as much of a foregone conclusion as I have in the past, which is going to be a fun ride.
The rest, this is the thing we've been hearing for now like 5+ years, but you've been seeing in results. You saw in the last Olympics, like the rest of the world is catching up. They are investing a lot more in women's soccer. It's the reason why a lot of the U.S. players play internationally now, because there's more opportunities in Europe and whatnot. So I do think it could be really close and really exciting. It just probably won't be on Friday. That's all. But I'm pumped. Like my excitement level goes from like 0 to 60 so quickly with World Cups in general. Like I mean, I'm excited, but it's out of sight, out of mind at the moment. And then bam, all of a sudden,
are you
scheduling everything around it.
Are you a World Cup party watcher, or is this more like your NFL experience where you don't really need people around you?
I would love to watch with people. I don't really have friends to watch with around here. Although we do have the advantage of it being at 6 p.m. Pacific. These
we got a 9 p.m. start.
Yeah.
But it's also, so it's gonna be a rough kickoff for me because it's also Barbie weekend. We got tickets to Barbie. I would like to see Oppenheimer at some point, so I might have to miss the opener as much as, or maybe we could get early tickets to Barbie. I don't know.
You got to get the Barbie Oppenheimer World Cup triple header going.
Oh my gosh, pass out. Why don't you throw Mission Impossible on there too? Just
all right.
No.
So we got anything on Messi? I mean, he is like the world's greatest footballer. We made a big deal when Zlatan came and hit a couple bangers in his first MLS game. Nothing on this one. It's brought Sergio Busquets also.
The thing that I find interesting about Messi, when I was reading about that, he's in the group chat and one of the players needed some tickets and he was like, all right, the group chat for the team. He's like, all right, how many you need? Like he would take care of it. And it just made me think how it feels like when I'm with old friends. Like, obviously, I'm going to pick up the check. But Messi? With these like, guys? Bro. Like, I mean, my friends will sometimes pretend to reach for their card or something. And then I'm like, all right, man, whatever. Don't worry about it. Especially if they're with their wives or something, they reach their card. And I'm like, nah, don't worry about it. I understand the show you got to put on. But with Messi, let's not play. You just got $1 billion. We're not even going to play around, man.
Did you watch this? I know. It's like, we can Google your net worth and the results are actually correct, unlike most people. Did you watch the show Jury Duty by any chance on Amazon?
I did.
You know the scene? Okay, there's a scene I'm not spoiling anything, where, so the premise of the show is it's a jury, they're actually actors, but James Harden, who is playing himself, is one of the jurors. And there's a scene where they all go out to dinner and they all like kind of look at him like James Harden's gonna pick up the check, right? And then ultimately he does. But anyways, I feel like that's kind of the dynamic. Forget picking up the check.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to be like to be around him at all time. Like, imagine you're just, I don't know, a guy at the end of this roster. Like, what analogy is there in? Yeah, I guess it's like when
there need to be watches in all the lockers when they show up. Like watches in all the lockers from Messi. Not no cheap watches either. I mean, you need some nice watches.
There was Vanilla Snack briefly put up a little
fact
about how the ticket prices have soared for this. I think that's actually what intrigues me the most about this, is not watching Messi, because he's Messi. He doesn't have anything to prove. But I want to see if the spectacle follows, because this is, of course, a bet meaning by MLS and whatever, and of course Miami, on his business impact, the ability to not just put fans in seats, but make it feel different. And I think that's something I'm curious about.
Yep. All right, Alabaster, moving on.
All right, guys, we'll move on to a story you guys definitely want to talk about. What's your takeaway from the NFL's investigation report on the Commanders and Daniel Snyder?
Yeah, I mean, he has to pay $60 million. I don't care so much about that. I mean, it was a reminder of things that we already knew and felt in reading the report. There was not a whole bunch new, but I guess it doesn't mean that we can't revisit it. They kind of sustained the accusations of him putting his hand on Tiffany Johnston's leg in the restaurant and trying to push her to his limo after they left. They also sustained the idea that people dug up her photos where her body was not completely covered. They could not prove that those were presented to Dan Snyder, but they showed that happened. But while those are like the most offensive things, we kind of already knew that. The less offensive things that we actually did get some more hardcore evidence from was the stealing of the money from not just NFL teams, which he did, but also from fans who put down deposits to lease suites. So they said there were tens of millions of dollars worth of transfers that they could not account for, that the team refused to help them explain. They also found $11 million that they kept out of the shared money pot that goes with the league. So, I mean, it's nothing new. It's all the stuff that we already knew and expected, but I guess it's good to be reminded of it and good to have it on paper.
Yeah, the key takeaways for me were that the investigation talked to a lot of people and did got a lot of documents, found both Johnston and then Jason Friedman, who was the former Commanders executive who alleged basically that they were hiding money, to be credible. I mean, Dan Snyder has gone after Friedman, and I think ultimately White coming down on both of their sides is kind of the big takeaway. She also really emphasized how Dan Snyder did not participate in the investigation, was, that they tried to make it harder for them to find stuff. They were pushing back. He wouldn't be interviewed. Again, like kind of stuff we know, but it was, seeing it all laid out was pretty stark. I've seen a lot of people with the a fair reaction that it's also bittersweet to see this guy get called out, punished, and then ultimately rewarded with $6 billion from selling the team. You and I have talked a lot about, though, how, like, yes, that's a lot of money, but he clearly didn't want to sell it. So while understand that it's very it's crappy, frankly, that I don't think like the difference between him making $4 billion or $6 billion or whatever is going to materially change his life so much as being publicly humiliated, universally called the worst owner in sports, and ultimately forced out of the league. That's the real punishment here for him.
Yeah, I think I read there were 44 witnesses, and there were tens of thousands of documents, witnesses that they talked to, and tens of thousands of documents that they went through. To pick up on your point, they talked to a bunch of people and looked at lots of documents. But yeah, after a certain threshold of money, there's like having more money doesn't improve your quality of life. So I get why people, like you were saying, why people don't love that he's making all this money. But what I think he had that has been taken away from him was what made him special, and the one thing he cared about. Like, he grew up a fan of the Washington team. He loved that team. That was the one thing that it seemed like he really, really cared about, was being the owner of that team, being one of 32 or 31 billionaires who get to own a team, and it was the team that he grew up watching. So if people are looking for some catharsis in whatever pain that you think that he might be feeling, I think you should understand that being publicly embarrassed and having the team taken from him, the seemingly one thing that he cared about, is the best that we can muster, and it's not too bad, I guess.
And I'm like, for Friedman, for Johnston, who in the report she talks about how she originally didn't want to be named because she knew she was worried about what it would do to her life. I hope this moment brings them peace, and I hope having their claims sustained by the investigators is validating, and I imagine it must be. Frankly, she sided with them. There was tons of evidence and witnesses and all of that, and I think that was really important. It was really important that the NFL put it out, put it on the record, embarrassed him further, that he didn't get to hide from any of it. All that really matters. So I understand that it feels a little bit hollow in some ways, but it is certainly the best outcome, even if it took a disgustingly long time to get here.
Going forward, I wonder what the owners are going to do about stealing from each other, because I don't imagine that he's the only one, and I don't imagine that now that they've caught him that they are like, all right, we got the one guy who's stealing out of the league. I don't know. It's probably not very interesting to anybody else, but it's something that after reading that Van Natta and Wickersham piece a couple weeks ago, I love thinking about the backroom politics of all these selfish super billionaire people. Anyway, gotta check. Moving on.
All right, guys. Let's talk some ball. It's time to talk about the Jets. They got a really tough schedule. They got a new quarterback, and they're the Jets. So who knows what's going to happen. If the Jets start off slowly, could you see this team headed for a spectacular collapse?
Well, start off slowly. They likely will start off slowly as far as the record's concerned, but it depends on how competitive they are in the games. I think how we feel about them. But they start out with the Bills, Cowboys, Pats, Chiefs, Broncos, Eagles before it starts to get a little bit easier. The Pats is the easiest game in there, and that defense is always good. So there's a good chance that they could start out 1-5, 2-3, or worse. And I think it would turn into a collapse if Aaron Rodgers is throwing picks and Aaron Rodgers is getting sacked. The real issue is, frankly, his health in the offensive line. You get older, you get hurt a little bit more, and you can't do the things you wanted to before, which is why Tom Brady, when he went down to Tampa, he made sure that his O-line was accomplished. We have a different situation in New York with Aaron Rodgers, with Brown and Becton on edges. Your boy, Dwayne Brown.
Maybe we don't even know if they're playing offense. I just checked this today because we were talking about the Jets on NFL Live, and I wanted to find out who was starting at tackle. There, Dwayne Brown wasn't practicing. Billy Turner was on the left side. Mekhi Becton was on the second team. Max Mitchell was on the right side. It is dubious. Yeah. And those teams you mentioned, the Bills, the Cowboys.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on in my voice. The Patriots, even the Broncos, the Chiefs, and the Eagles. You could argue those 6 teams are all in the top 10 to 12 defenses in the NFL.
That's so.
That is a tough schedule.
They got Chris Jones and the Eagles. Everyone on the Eagles. They got Bradley Chubb to deal with.
Or he's in Miami now, but
yeah. The Broncos. That's what I was thinking. Bradley Chubb.
If they get past Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence in week 2.
Yeah, I didn't want to name Micah Parsons because that seems unfair. They're not getting past him. That's the game that they need to just try to survive. Just survive.
You mentioned 1-5 being a possibility.
They do have Bradley Chubb eventually because they are in that division with the Dolphins.
Oh yeah, then they have to right. Well, that's the thing about the AFC East is crazy murderous row of defenses, and that by the way is why I think the Jets have a chance in these games, regardless of what's going on offense, because their defense is one of that murderous row of defenses. But to your point, I think it has to be the combination of losing and then Rodgers struggling.
Right.
If the pass protection is such and that it just looks bad, there will be so much chaos around this team if that or transpire. This is a team that didn't even want to be in Hard Knocks. Like you think this is going to go down well? It is, the circus potential is very high.
I mean, is there a way that they come out of those first few weeks where like we are not going crazy? Because I feel like either way, if they come out 5-1, the media's going nuts. This is the best thing ever. If they come out 1-5, we're like, oh, this team is all blown up. Aaron Rodgers, there's going to be so many drug jokes. It's going to be exhausting. Is there a way that they can come out of this where we're just like, whatever?
Yes. Dak Prescott throws 3 picks, and that's how they beat the Cowboys, and that's all we talk about.
That's fair. If the Cowboys do anything, but I don't know. It's still the New York Jets. I don't know. I work on Get Up with Mike Greenberg. So we're talking about Jet stuff no matter what happens.
We're talking about, okay, so we've been cowardly talking about possibilities. Let's talk about what we actually think will happen.
Yeah.
Like if you actually look at ththose first 3 games, let's do the first 3. Bills, Cowboys, Patriots. I could see 1 and 2. Feels like 1 and 2. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if I had to bet on it, we saw Alabaster put up 9.5 is the over-under for their wins on the season. But if we're looking at those first 3 games, I think that I don't want to say which games there are, but I think they are better than the Pats, maybe talent-wise, but they are not better coaching than the Pats. They're not better than any of these teams, like decidedly better than any of these teams. It might be right now.
Well, and that's, I mean, God, Bill Belichick against Nathaniel Hackett.
Matty Axe.
I do think this is an offense, and I don't think either of us are worried about the defense, that could look better in the second half of the season than they do in the first. I'm not even sure what the status is of Breece Hall right now. I mean, and I think having him is really important for this offense because death behind him is it's okay. I think that they really, like, so much of what I expect them to try to do on offense is going to flow from that outside zone rushing attack. And if he's not there, it's not really going to be as successful. I don't know. I'm skeptical of the offense. I think defense will be great.
I think it's more likely to come out of those first 3 games 0-3 than 3-0. I think we would agree on that. But the most likely scenario is they get one of those games just because football happens, and sometimes football happens, and they're close enough. Like, they're not terrible. Their defense is going to keep them close. Aaron Rodgers is going to make some plays late in the game, and they'll probably beat the Cowboys in a close game, and then we'll be firing Mike McCarthy in week 2, baby.
So, but if they go 1 and 2, and then they have I forget the order, but the Broncos, the Eagles, and the Chiefs, I think we probably would have them again going 1 and 2. So you're looking at 2 and 4.
Yeah, they got the Chiefs.
Is 2 and 4 panic enough? Like, will that induce panic? 2 and 4 is pretty.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on if that win is against the Eagles, because they have the Eagles last. So it's after the Pats is Chiefs, Broncos, Eagles. So they're gonna lose to the Chiefs, we assume, and they have a chance of beating the Broncos, and I assume they're definitely gonna lose to the Eagles.
It really is all about the schedule, because I don't think I think they're a good team. The defense is too good for this team to be bad.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. Is as long as, and this is how I would talk myself into it, is Aaron Rodgers doesn't turn the ball over. The defense is going to keep the game close. And when the game is close in football, at the end, like, random things can happen, and you have a great receiver and a good quarterback. So I don't expect them to get blown out. I guess it's possible they could get blown out by the Chiefs or the Bills. I don't expect anybody else to blow them out. Maybe the Eagles. But they'll just be close, and then Aaron Rodgers will make one great throw in the fourth quarter and will explode. That's it.
I would just like to note one thing, that Aaron Rodgers doesn't turn the ball over until it counts in the playoffs. Carry.
Well, we're talking about the first 6 games of the year, not the playoffs. Hater.
Can we do better than vanilla snack?
I would prefer if no one ever said that again. So yes, we can definitely do better.
Snow cap.
Yeah, let's go with Snowcap. Definitely go with Snowcap.
Does Daryl Morey owe it to James Harden to trade him where he wants?
He's so flustered. He's so flabbergasted. He's so
he is flustered. I didn't even hear the question. Read it again. Oh, does Daryl Morey owe it to James Harden to trade
Yeah,
him?
absolutely. What kind of question is this?
Yeah, I mean...
yeah, give him whatever he wants.
He took a pay cut last year, so it is now his... And he's also... Here we go. Here it is. I found it. Daryl Morey is now considered, and it's become Dork Elvis or Nerd Elvis, whatever Bill Simmons calls him, and he's the most famous and kind of well-known NBA GM, and he's revered for revolutionizing basketball, all because James Harden was as good as he had hoped. So Daryl Morey owes everything that he has to James Harden. So the least he could, that's some good spin right there. I could be a lawyer. The least he could do is trade this man where he wants to go. Ha!
Okay.
We all said that trade was dumb. It's like, no, that's too much. Well, actually, we thought it was dumb for OKC. But anyway, no one thought that he was going to turn to an MVP. And they were going to be the only team that gave the Warriors, only team in the West to give the Warriors a real serious scare. That's all Daryl Morey. Got him a whole nother job and some more checks. Thanks, James Harden.
I mean, Morey's entire image, the praise that he's gotten is built on being the guy who does not do this. Right. The guy who doesn't cave. It honestly kind of begs comparisons, like why aren't more, I don't know, whatever. Anyways, I think if you were to trade James Harden, I mean, first of all, there's no good trade packages out there. So it's such a stupid conversation. Like I'm reading articles like, oh, the Clippers aren't going to part ways with Terrence Mann. Like him trading away James Harden for nothing would be essentially not only tanking the Sixers prospects this season, but probably alienating Joel Embiid and sending him out. Like what? There's just no reason for him to do this. I don't understand. Yeah. I guess you're gonna, this will culminate in some sort of standoff, insert fat suit joke, but like, I don't understand any logical case for him giving in.
Yeah, I mean, Harden's value is pretty low right now. The logical case the logical thing to do would be to try to increase his value by letting him play and hoping some other team becomes desperate for a ball handler that can distribute and hit open shots, and then you fleece that team. Then I think it's pretty clear that as the 76ers are currently constructed, no one believes that they are going to be a championship contender anytime soon. So you got to get Joel Embiid. I mean, you're hoping for injuries. They're not better than the Celtics. I don't think so. Yeah. I mean, they're not better than the Bucks. I don't think the Bucks are aging, but I think the Bucks are better. The Heat, it's just, and I don't see a way that they can get better because you would hope that players would get better. I guess Tyrese Maxey becomes the number one, but he can as long as James Harden is there. So like it feels like they've put themselves in a bad situation.
Can I give the case for why Daryl Morey actually should do what James Harden wants?
Sure.
I just did.
No, but this one is unique because we heard the people being like, oh, the Blazers should trade Dame where he wants so they can eventually sign a free agent. The difference here is that Morey sort of entrapped him into this contract, got him to opt in when he would have made $130, $150 million last offseason. But it's not only that. His relationship is so tied with Harden and then trying to build a 2 superstar team. That's what he's done all the way since Houston. And they've loaded up on cap space for next summer. And Philly's an actual destination. Play with the MVP, have a chance to win a title. And if they sort of botch this, Embiid, who he might be gone regardless, but he's definitely gone if you mess up the situation. We saw what happened with Danny Ainge in Boston when he lost the trust of the NBA players after the Isaiah Thomas debacle. You know, you had Anthony Davis, you had Damian Lillard being like, I don't want to play for that franchise. I don't want to play for a team that treats players like this. And the Anthony Davis one was directly linked to Isaiah Thomas with that scout. Those were his actual comments from him and his dad. And so I think there's actual stakes where if he up his chance to put another superstar next to Embiid, he's going to get fired. And his whole thing, I'm a great GM, I'm better than all the other GMs with the math, that's gone. He's on Debatable with us.
Mina.
I liked how your voice caught a little bit before you said the F word there. I just want to say that. Here's my question for you. Do we think Joel Embiid cares how James Harden is treated? Have they ever given any indication of having any relationship at all? Like, setting aside your earlier assertion that Morey somehow trapped him into opting in, like he led him to a gingerbread house with candy that had that opt-in. I don't understand. I don't really believe personally that Joel Embiid would look at a situation in which Morey doesn't give Harden exactly what he wants and say, wow, this organization, they don't treat people right.
Yeah, I think the perception of organizations is tied to how the star players feel about them. I think, and the city they're in and all that stuff, I don't know that Daryl Morey can wrong James Harden so much that a star is going to say, I don't want to play with Joel Embiid if they wanted to play with Joel Embiid. So I think the only star whose feelings matters right now is Joel Embiid. If for whatever reason Joel Embiid wants you to keep James Harden there, which I don't think we have any indication that he does, or pay him, then you have to figure some things out. But my guess is if you move on from James Harden and Joel Embiid is aggressively courting this other next superstar and they see this opportunity, I think it's hard for me to believe that someone's going to be like, oh, but you tricked James Harden. Yeah, James Harden with the honey trap.
I want to know what Embiid wants. That's what I was so annoyed. Was it earlier this week when he had the quote about, I want to win a championship somewhere, maybe not here, and then he tried to walk it back. That annoys me more than like demanding a trade, frankly, because it's kind of like playing footsie. We call that
the Dame.
Yes, it is. It's like you're permanently like soft launching a breakup, right? Like it's like, you're like posting. Domonique's really into posting pictures lately on Instagram. It's like posting pictures where you're like, you're like out a lot without your significant other, and you're like, you want people to kind of wonder what's going on. Just say it. Just say it. Just say what you want. You want Dame? You want them to trade Maxey? Say it.
It's like when people put up those quotes that are like cryptic but like faux deep. I'm always stronger alone. That's the same sort of thing.
Speaking of, Alabaster just posted that James Harden said on his Instagram story today, quote, "Been comfortable for so long. It's time to get uncomfortable." Don't put the fat suit up. He's going to put the fat suit up.
It's terrible. Yeah.
Who do you think could withstand being physically uncomfortable longer, James Harden or Daryl Morey?
Definitely James Harden.
Like if you put them in two tiny, tiny chairs.
Are the chairs the same size, or they're tiny depending on the size of the person?
Morey's a big dude.
Yeah, I mean, he's not tall.
He's very tall.
He's James Harden
Daryl
tall?
Morey? Dude, he is. Yeah, he's like crazy tall. It's
really?
It's very confusing.
Yeah, that's unnerd-like. He can't be nerd Elvis if he's tall. What is he, like 6'5"?
I don't know, but he's tall as hell. I'll say that.
Can't hold my ass though. That's all that means.
How do you think this all ends, Domonique?
With no rings for either of them. No, I think James Harden goes and plays for them this year. I don't think they end up moving on from him. I can't imagine that there's too many teams that want to bring him in. I guess they signed him to a small enough contract. Somebody might want him, but they end up playing it out here, and nobody wins a championship, and Joel Embiid ends up in New York in a couple seasons. Sorry, Philadelphia. What's Philadelphia known for? Like, it's a major East Coast city, and all the cities on the East Coast, like major cities, like have their thing. In Philly, I feel like it's like Rocky, cheesesteaks.
Yeah, Rocky, cheesesteaks, art museum. There's a lot of beautiful buildings downtown. There's that love sculpture.
Man, overrated.
I'm not trying to Angry Philly fan. I guess we already did.
I mean, Philly fans are always angry.
I just said James Harden Morey should stand his ground. So I think that's the pro Sixer stance.
I said the Eagles are much better there than the Jets. So you're welcome. You got it.